What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. My name is Sam Thrash, and I'm your show host. Thanks for tuning in. We have covered a lot of whitetail recently, and I am by no means trying to drag out the whitetail deer conversation here on our show, but there's a big piece in the story of Texas dirt and my own hunting experience down here in Texas this year and the guys that I hunt with down here. Still got some pieces to fill in that puzzle, and one of them is the perspective and the story from my good buddy and our production director here at Fall Obsession, Nick Powell. So that's what we're doing this week on the show. Nick is back with us, and we are going to hear about his side of the story from this year's deer season and his encounters and everything that followed with the buck that we called the bow blind buck on the Texas dirt property this year. By far the most mature deer and the biggest deer that we had on the property this year. And we got a pretty crazy story to go along with that. So you guys aren't going to want to miss it. But before we get any farther into it or we bring Nick into the conversation, got some discount codes for you guys from the folks that make Fall Obsession podcast happen and consistent for you guys. The first one is from Hoot Camo. Been rocking Hoot gear for a couple of seasons now. Absolutely love it. The gear is high quality. It holds up in the elements. The pattern is super versatile, super unique. Works in many different environments and backdrops. You guys are going to love it. Go to hootcamo.com and use the code FALLOBSESSION15 to save some money at checkout and on your next order. They got all sorts of gear, more than just camo on there, so see what they have over at Hoot Camo. Trophy Edits also has a discount code for you guys. They basically do professional photo editing, and I'm not just talking about, changing the colors and the lighting and all that kind of stuff. They can certainly do that. But if you guys have anything in the picture that you want out of the picture, you want it to look the absolute best it possibly can for you, that's what the Trophy Edits team is there for. You guys might be thinking, man, why do I need photo editing? Well, maybe not every hunter, every picture needs it, but the hunts that do, those memorable ones with your wife, your kids, your loved ones, your dad, significant moments in your life, you want those to be captured in the best way possible. That's what Trophy Edits is there for. They can do prints. They can do all sorts of different things. Go to the link in this podcast description. That will take you guys over there. You can check out everything that they got going on. And if you place an order, use the code FALLOBSESSION, all lowercase, one word, at checkout, and that will save you guys some money with Trophy Edits. Bear River Archery is the official bow shop of Fall Obsession. If you guys are local to the North Texas area where we're at, and you are looking for a trusted and vetted bow shop that's going to treat you right, get you taken care of, you need to go over to Bear River and see what Justin can do for you. Let him know that Fall Obsession sent you. We actually got a podcast coming up in the coming weeks with Justin in the shop there at Bear River. You guys don't want to miss it. Go check out everything they got going on at Bear River Archery. The Outdoor Call radio app is a Fall Obsession podcast partner. You guys can hear our show, different episodes playing on that app every single Monday. It's the same day as our new publications, as well as tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that play on the Outdoor Call radio app on a loop every single day. So go download it today for free and start listening, and be sure you follow the Outdoor Call radio app and their show host, Outdoors Dan, on social media. That way you can also check out the live radio show broadcasts they do throughout the week. Again, it's the Outdoor Call radio app. Go download it today. Finally, if you guys are looking to book a hunt with a vetted and trusted outfitter, then you need to head on over to Ridge Rock Hunt Company and let Derek Eves do it for you. Derek has a big network of vetted and trusted outfitters across North America. He guarantees a good experience. You guys want to get hooked up with him. Again, it's Derek Eves over at Ridge Rock Hunt Company. Go check him out. I want to thank you guys again for tuning in to another Fall Obsession podcast. Whatever platform or app you are streaming this episode on, please hit that follow or subscribe button, whatever they have up there for you. Make sure that your notifications are turned on. That way you guys get notified, if that's an option, every time we drop a new episode or new content, whatever it might be. We post weekly on all major podcast platforms, as well as our website, Waypoint TV, and Carbon TV. And if you guys aren't streaming our hunting shows and series on Carbon TV, you need to be. There are 4 of them. This podcast, our staff-inspired video podcast series called Couch Chats, is on Carbon TV, as well as our 2 different hunting shows, Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. Again, all streaming on Carbon TV. It's a free hunting and outdoor content streaming platform like Netflix for hunting, basically. Go check it out. The website is fallobsession.com. All of our content filters through there, and we have recently made some updates to our website. Still have a few more that we're working on to make that content experience for you guys at fallobsession.com the best it can possibly be. You can also order some apparel, some gear, some decals, whatever it might be, from our website and from us directly on there. And then obviously the social media platforms, that's where you guys can stay tuned in with everything we got going on over here at Fall Obsession. Facebook, Instagram, X. We are on TikTok. We were banned like the rest of the world, but guess what? Now we're back. So TikTok's back up and running at Fall Obsession Media is the handle there. So go check us out and make sure that you guys are plugged in with everything we got going on here at Fall Obsession. With that, we're going over to our conversation with Nick. We're going to find out what happened in Texas this year. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down. Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to another Fall Obsession podcast. My name is Sam, hosting you guys, and I'm back on here with one of our own team members, one of our own directors here at Fall Obsession. He's been on the show before, actually been hanging with me here and there since the very beginning of this podcast. Nick Powell.
That's true.
Welcome back, buddy.
Hey, it's good to be back. It's always good to hop back on here and just catch up, really.
Yeah. Man, I was looking back at like who all we've had on the show and everything, and like I just said, I think even though it was episode 2, you and I recorded the very first few Fall Obsession podcast episodes in the very beginning, but you know, we did at the time this episode's coming out, it'll be concluded, but we did the fan favorite, you know, podcast of 2024 for our listeners to go vote for and everything. And, you know, going back through that and seeing who all we had on the show, I was like, man, I haven't recorded with Nick in a long time. Like, we did episode 169 together, which was over a hunt from last season. And then you were with me for the Dale Brisby podcast out there at Radiator Ranch. But other than that, it's been a minute since I feel like we got on here and talked some hunting. So
yeah, it has for sure. And you know, I think we say it all the time, like our lives just get busy. We had hunting season, deer season come around, and then Thanksgiving, more hunting season, Christmas, New Year's. So it's just been a whirlwind of a few months especially for me. I know, but
I feel like it also comes down to the evolution and the maturing of the show as well, because, you know, in the very beginning, we did a lot of episodes just, I refer to them as in-house, right, with our own team and you and I and all that kind of stuff, because, you know, we were trying to get things rolling, get things off the ground, demonstrate some consistency. And now that we're well over 200 episodes into this thing, I feel like we're, you know, it's become, we've learned the game a little bit, so it's becoming a lot easier to get, you know, guests from outside of our organization, from other brands, other places in the industry. It's working a lot better to get them on the show, and that's also provided a lot of content that we didn't have 100 episodes ago, you know, which I think is pretty cool. Like having Dale on the show was incredible. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, technology helps a lot with that as well. Just like right now we're on a Zoom call, so that helps us reach a little further and just include a lot more people to hop on with us. So
the virtual thing. I love in-person episodes more than anything, and I'm looking forward. I know here coming up pretty soon, you and I are going to be knocking one out in person over at the Bear River Bear
Yeah,
River
man, that's
Archery
gonna
Shop with
be
Justin.
that's gonna be fun.
I'm looking forward to that episode, and I love the in-person episodes. They're by far my favorites.
Yeah, for sure.
Nothing beats them. But yeah, the virtual component, like, I mean, we're both here in North Texas, but we're still a couple hours from each other, when we're at
Right.
home. So it's like, man, this is way more convenient.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like we said earlier, busy lives. This helps us still get content out as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, man, on that note, like busy lives, hunting season, all that kind of stuff. Anybody who has been consistently listening to the show for, throughout the fall, basically, they've heard me give some updates from Texas Dirt throughout the year, some bits and pieces and everything. But one thing I was intentionally trying to not share a whole lot about was your hunting season and some of the
Yeah.
stuff that you had going on out there, because I wanted to do this. I wanted to have you on the show to talk about it yourself and everything, and your perspective from Texas Dirt, because as seems to be the theme for the past 4 years, we have high hopes, we our dreams get dashed, we learn a lot, and we have big plans for the future. And
Yeah,
hopefully year five, maybe five's our lucky number. We'll see, but
maybe so.
I do feel like we learned a whole lot more this year than we have in previous years. And speaking for
No doubt.
myself, at least, I feel like we're trying to make a little bit more of a push to understand what we're missing out there, so that hopefully we can change that in the future, because we've adjusted little bits and pieces here and there, but overall we haven't just completely changed the game, and we might have to change the game a little bit more than we have, and I feel like that's
Might
what
be
we're
what
learning. So
Yeah, that might be what season five.
yeah.
Our fifth season out there, that might be what our fifth season is all about, is changing the game and how at least me and you hunt, because I don't we it's me and you and both of our dads out there, as I'm sure our listeners are aware. And I don't think our dads are going to change the way that they hunt anytime soon. So but also just the way that Texas Dirt is set up, it being limited to, mostly mesquites, very little oaks to actually get up in. We're going to have to change our tactics a little bit and figure out how we can, figure out where these deer are moving a little bit better. And this podcast has actually helped me realize it. And I know you a little bit helped us realize like how we can go about doing that. And so I'm pretty excited for what next year holds.
Yeah, having some of the guys on the show that we've had recently, like Grant Woods, Don Higgins, and then even recording, we follow those up with a couple in-house podcasts, but with Mike Teepee and Chad Jones, and just even, I mean, all these guys are knowledgeable in whitetail management, improving habitat, all that kind of stuff, hunting strategies. And so trying to take stuff away from, what the knowledge that they have to offer and what they've shared on the show and everything. And I've told our listeners before, especially like last year before my elk hunt, I was like, hey, I'm trying to learn how to elk hunt, so I'm going to record episodes of me trying to learn from people, but other people can benefit from it. Kind of the same principle with the whitetail hunting right here. Maybe somebody that is scratching their heads like we are can benefit from, all this whitetail knowledge we've had on the show recently. But yeah, I definitely think there's some stuff to change out there, and to hone in a little bit more on hunting transition areas between bedding and food, and trying to get a better idea on where those are, how we can adjust our setups. I'm not saying that we're going to cold turkey quit on having feeders out there. We might still have feeders, we just might utilize them a little bit differently. And the reason that I'm hesitant to go cold turkey on feeders and switch over to food plots is just because of the cows. We need to get something going on with food plots, but the landowners have cows on the place. That's one thing we can't control. The cows are there and the cows are going to stay. And obviously, you just throw a food plot out there in the wide open, the cattle are going to get into it. And that's a big thing, a big hurdle that I feel like we're trying to cross. And I know I was talking to my dad the other day, because he's scratching his head too. You talked about, them not changing, and I know my dad's a rifle hunter. He's not gonna not be a rifle hunter, obviously, but
Same.
I know he's scratching his head too, trying to figure out what he can do to change his tactics and his setups as well, to kind of kind of trend the same direction that we're trying to trend with the bow hunting out there and everything. Because my dad filled 4 of his 5 tags out there, which is awesome, but he worked super hard for it. Like he was telling me,
Yeah.
he's like, man, I think I spent 20 or 30 days out there in the stand to kill 4 deer, and
Yep.
I mean, for some guys, you might put in that amount of time to kill one mature buck, depending on where you are in the country, right?
Sure.
Like that's the amount of time. But at least for where we are, especially when you're just trying to shoot does and put meat in the freezer, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time in the stand to put in to come away with 4 deer. And I know my dad, every year, him and I talk, and I'm going to get him on the show too to talk about his side of it. But every year, it's like let's kill early. That way we're not scrambling late. And seems like we're always scrambling late. So
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to kind of start the story of my
yeah,
season, because I'm a big fan of, and I know there's mixed reviews on this from, everybody is. I'm a big fan of, shooting a spike or shooting a doe first thing out of the gate, right when the season starts, in order to fill the freezer, because I've been in that situation where you wait, you wait until, because you go after the big buck first, first and foremost, and because you want to get that trophy in that that you want to fill that tag, and then not being able to, and then waiting till the last minute, last weekend of the season, trying to fill the freezer. And this is something that I've just changed, like within the last couple of years, because I've had that season where you're scrambling to fill the freezer, and so that's kind of was the start of my season. I went out and killed. Well, the very start of my season was during bow season. I went out there and tried to harvest a doe, but I don't know if I don't think you've said this on a podcast, but I had a little bit of a malfunction with my equipment, to start out the season trying to shoot a doe.
yeah,
Um, so my bow, basically, one of the pins that was on my cam, um, just sheared straight off. And this was as I was drawing back, I felt some sort of little pop and thought, man, that really felt weird. Let back down. Obviously, the doe saw me being within bow range. She blew and took off. So that was unsuccessful. And unfortunately, during bow season, you're not allowed to hunt with a rifle. Shocker. So that kind of squashed that, that trip out there. But anyway, so I had to wait for rifle season, and then ended up shooting a doe at my buddy's place, at a guy we work with. His deer lease is about 30 minutes north of ours, and and he's got MLD tags and all sorts of stuff, and so it's really a cool deal. They always need help shooting does, because those MLD ranches always have a lot of tags and are really good about the conservation and trying to, the trying to help the deer herd in that area. So I was able to get that to fill the freezer. I was able to shoot a spike, fill a spike tag out at our place with a rifle. And so that way I can just basically focus on the few big bucks that we saw, which is kind of how I like to go about my season. But the season was off to a bad start with the malfunction. So
well, and on that note too, like nobody plans for that, right? Nobody
sure.
plans or anticipates their bow breaking in the stand. And I mean, I can only imagine how frustrated that made you and everything in the moment. Like that's just that sucks, man. And
Yeah.
I will, on that note, give a shout out to Justin over at Bear River for getting you fixed up and everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Quick.
Yeah.
And you had your bow. I don't know how much you hunted with it late season, but you had your bow back before deer season was over. Like
Yep.
he got it rocking and rolling fairly quickly, relatively speaking. So
Yeah, I think from the time I got it to him to the time he was able to get the parts and get it fixed was maybe a week and a half, somewhere around there. I'm a little fishy on exact dates, but I'm pretty sure it was very
quick. I
fast.
was pleasantly surprised. Like
Yeah.
it seemed great. So
Which also shout out to Elite for standing by their warranty, because they have an awesome warranty that goes with every bow you buy, and sending the parts for no charge. So
yeah.
couldn't have done it without both those guys. So
Yeah. It's nice when the system works.
yeah, yeah, it is. It really is. So it's almost that's why they do that.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'll that sort of gets into the buck part of my season. So as you said on here, we had three shooter bucks. If I'm 3 or 4.
We had three or
Shooter
four that we
bucks.
were looking at consistently, I would
Yeah.
say. Like we had the one mainly on the south side that ended up moving his range during the rut and everything. We called him the bow blind buck.
Yeah.
And he was, in my opinion, one of the biggest bucks we had on the property this year. Every deer was like an 8-point, a mainframe 8 at least, it seemed like.
Yeah.
I know we had the camp stand buck, also a big 8, big bodied deer. We had what turned out to be a different 8-point, the one that your dad killed, and I've talked about
Yep.
him on the show and my one encounter with him as well. We had another heavy horned 8 that my dad killed. We had another I think another 8-point that we called Old Heavy that was down on the south side, the south ladder down there. He hung out in that area, and a couple other bucks that were seemed like kind of satellite bucks. They just kind of roamed through
Yeah,
every once in a while, but
they were just here and gone. Seemed like
there were 4 for sure that were living on our
we're
place.
consistent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that brings up another topic. You mentioned the rut, which this year was pretty crazy in terms of, because everybody focuses on that strong 2 weeks that the rut is really hot and heavy. For some reason, this year's rut seemed to start like we were catching pictures of deer chasing like mid to late October,
Early.
all the way until almost late November, early December. I mean, it seemed like it was a 4 or 5 week rut which made it very difficult to. I mean, it made the bucks move a little more, like it grew their range, but they were so inconsistent after that, which made it very difficult to hone in on where they would be.
Well, you would see the does, like I could tell when the rut went into full swing, because camp stand was a good case study, right? Because if the deer are anything at camp stand, it's consistent.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
they are very patternable in that area. But I knew, because I mean we have pictures of 9, 10, 11 does and fawns at times in that one spot, right?
Yeah,
But I knew the rut was in swing when we started just getting 1 or 2, because it's like, okay, the bucks are running doe bedding areas right now. They have the does knocked off their normal routine. Deer are chasing, and to your point, like everything just seems so inconsistent. It was more of a shot in the dark on, man, I might see a deer chasing through here, or I might not, depending on where you hunted and everything. And talking to these guys I mentioned earlier that we've had on the show, almost every one of them has said, man, I hardly hunt during the rut just because it's so unpredictable. And he's, if I have a good transition area, I might sit there, but I don't hunt a whole lot during the rut. And Don Higgins talked about how he likes to hunt and kill his mature buck pre-rut or before the rut, earlier in the season and everything. And so that stuff makes sense to me, I would say. The rut was just it was pretty crazy this year, and most people, they think about, oh, your normal 8 to 5 guys. When am I going to take off work? When am I going to go? When am I going to go hunt? I'm going to take off during the rut, obviously. And yeah, you might catch a deer chasing, but all the patterns you've been watching up till then, they're going to be all over the place.
Yeah, they're all out of whack at that moment in the year, and so, but that made it difficult to pattern the deer we have out there, which are already, I feel like, because it's so there's so much opportunity out there for them to eat, like so many feeders, next door or whatnot. It makes them difficult to pattern anyways. But we definitely had a couple of bucks that were very consistent, like the bow blind buck who was nocturnal from August to November when I had my encounter with him. He was nocturnal the whole time, but would come to that feeder every single night at around anywhere from 12 to 4 a.m. From midnight to 4.
Yeah.
And then the other most consistent buck I would say would be the camp buck. He was there all the time.
Yeah.
But I had my encounter. This was November. Me and my son, who's 5 years old, was out for Thanksgiving break. And so the weather was really good out there. We went there November 24th or November 25th. We went out there the evening of the 24th to hunt the morning of the 25th. And then, which was a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. So we went out there the morning of the 25th. No, I'm sorry. All that doesn't matter. We went out there the 25th. This is when we had my encounter. We were sitting at a stand where we had seen the bowblind buck during the rut expand his territory. So I was sitting at a different feeder than what he was normally at. And so we sat there, and I was not expecting to see him at all. I really wasn't expecting to see anything because the cameras, like our cameras, weren't telling us much.
Yeah.
because of the rut, the bucks were just everywhere, all over the place. But we were sitting there, and about 350 yards away, I see a group of does, and then I see a big, heavy buck that is chasing them around about 350 yards away. And I look through my binoculars, I see him, and I'm like, that's him. Daytime, in person, in real life.
Yeah.
I could not believe it was happening. And my son's just sitting next to me. He has very little idea what's going on, but I'm freaking out. And so there's this two of the does in this group start coming towards us, like they're going to come to our feeder. And there's like little oak thickets and stuff between us and them, and so they get behind those every now and then. And so I lose sight of them a little bit. Well, two of those does start coming our way, and he's following right behind him. And I'm like, he's coming. So I get the rifle ready because I don't have my bow at this moment in time. But I get my rifle ready, and they cross this. They go from left to right in this clearing at about 250 yards away. And so they go from left to right, one doe, two does, and then the buck crosses. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to stick. And I put my rifle up, getting ready for them to come back. And I see a doe come back, and I'm like, okay, as soon as he crosses this clearing, I'm going to throw a shot at him. And he comes across the clearing, and the does are at a trot because he's chasing them around, but he walks across this clearing and then just stops perfect broadside. And I put the crosshairs where they need to go, and I pull the trigger. It's like humps over. And I don't know if I told you all these details because you were there in camp with us that night.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you all these little details, but it was like it makes sense in the reason that I was thinking the way I was later in the story. And so when I shot, it looked like he almost hunched up, like I had hit him, and then he went behind a tree, like not at a run, like he didn't run off. He just hunched up and then like kind of
like you've been hit. Yeah.
Yeah, like he was hit. And so they went behind these trees, and I saw the doe come out, and then I saw the second doe come out, and he stayed behind this tree for probably 8 to 10 minutes. And I was telling Noah, like, which is my son, I was telling him, like, I think I hit him. I think he's laying there dead. I can't believe it. I think I hit him. And I think I got him. And I'm freaking out, and we're kind of celebrating. And then I keep watching that area, and I see him walk out, and he's just walking, not limping, just walking, like nobody ever shot at him almost. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Because the way he reacted definitely looked like he got hit. And so and the does are not acting like I shot at all, which was very strange. Like they were just walking through the trees. And so they cross another clearing, kind of at the same distance. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to send another shot at him. So the does cross, and then he crosses, and I send another shot at him, but none of them reacted at all. He didn't react at all. I'm like, okay, probably missed that one. Well, then I see him like chasing does, and they chase him off into this big oak thicket which is where later in the story we were tracking him. And they left. They were gone. And I'm like, well, I'm at least going to go down and check for blood, right? Because it looked like he got hit that first shot. So I'm going to go down, check for blood. And it was right before dark. There was still shooting light left, but I wanted to get down there before dark to make sure that I was able to see. And so me and Noah get down, and we're walking over there real slow. And I have and I also have my 300 blackout, just in case a hog were to come to the feeder or something. We've had hogs come to several feeders, and they're just kind of sporadic as well. So I was like, I'll take both of these just to make sure. So I have both of these guns with me, and we go where the shot took place. And as we're walking up to where I shot him, where he was when I shot him, or at him, I guess at this point, I look over towards the oak thicket where he ran, where I last saw him, and he's staring straight at me at probably about 80 to 100 yards between two trees. And I tell Noah, I'm like, stop. And then I'm like, he's right there. And he sees him. I get down. I put my 300 blackout. Like, I don't know, our YouTube listeners or watchers will be able to see this, but I'll try. Our Spotify listeners or podcast listeners won't be able to see it, so I'll try and explain it the best I can.
Yeah.
So I basically have my 300 blackout, the butt of the 300 blackout in the dirt, and I'm holding the barrel with my hand, and I rest my 6.5 Creedmoor on top of it as a rest, and I'm knelt down on the ground to aim at him. And he's facing directly at me, like straight on. So I know all the haters out there will be like, why'd you take that shot? Well, he's 100 yards away. If I hit him center mass, I know he's going to die. And I'm also thinking he might be hit already, and I don't want a wounded deer run around.
And he's already locked onto you, too.
Yeah, he's already aware I'm there. And so just a split-second decision. I put my crosshairs right in the middle of his chest, and I pull the trigger, and his reaction was like he had died. He spun around to his right, looker's left, and just immediately went down, tried to get up, and then went down again. And so then I'm like, got him, like piece of cake. 100 yards, easy shot. I've made that shot a ton of times. Like, I got him. He's down right there. He's going to lay there and die. And so I'm like hugging Noah. We're celebrating. We sit there for probably 10 minutes just to give him time. But he hasn't moved since I shot him. So we wait there 10, 15 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, we're going to, follow right behind me. We're going to sneak over here and see. We're going to hopefully see if he's dead, but we're not going to rush up on him just in case. So I start going, and there's a tree, like a big mesquite tree between me and him, or between us and the deer. And so we start, real slow moving towards him. Well, we get to about 40 yards from him, and he stands up on the other side of this tree. He can't see us, but he can hear us. And he hands up and starts blowing at us. And I'm like, oh shoot. So we just ducked down. I was not expecting this at all. So I just ducked down, and it's past shooting light, legal light at this point, because this was like last light that all this was happening. And so I just ducked down. We squat down thinking maybe he'll just fall back over and die. Well, he blows at us. I try and skirt like just real slow around the tree just to see him, just see if I can see anything like any blood on his chest or anything. And he blows at us. He runs to take off, goes down again, and then gets up, blows again, and then runs off into this big oak thicket. So at this point, I'm like, well, okay, now I need to back out because I know he's not all the way dead. So we back out, and this is when we meet you guys at camp, and I tell you all this story. And luckily, you got Ranger there, the blue-eyed blood tracking dog.
Yep.
And so we're like, all right, we're gonna give Ranger a track. I'm like, this deer should not last long. So I think we waited there for a little while, ate dinner, gave him a little time, and then we went back out. Probably, I'd say an hour or two later, hour and a half,
Yeah,
2 hours later, probably.
we hung out in camp for a little while and got some dinner and everything, and then yeah, from my recollection, went back out. That's probably
Yeah.
about right. Yeah.
And so we all and you and your dad are there, and me and Noah are there, and we all four of us went to where this all took place. And I'm like, okay, I was standing right here, shot right through there. And so we go and we find this puddle of blood where he had gone down. And so I'm like, okay, good sign, good sign. So I know now that he's hit. I know for a fact. So we go to this blood. Ranger gets on the track and he takes off. I'm like, okay, cool. But after that first pile of blood, it's a drop here, a drop there. And
Yeah.
it's probably what, every 20 yards or so, we're finding a drop of blood.
I would like the first 50 yards of that trail, from my recollection, I was pretty optimistic.
Yeah.
Like just a massive puddle of blood, pretty close to impact, probably where he dropped the first time and everything. And then we had more good blood, going, spaced out throughout that first 50 yards, I'd say. And then it started thinning out and getting to the point where, we're running the dog. I I don't consider myself an experienced, tracker in regards to managing this dog or anything, but just
Sure.
because he's young, I like to also have eyes on, something to let me know that he's on the right track, and everything. I, he seems to prove me wrong every time, in that I just need to trust him. And I can talk about that later, but anyway, yeah, he kept running it, and it got more sporadic and sparse the farther we got. And we went a long ways that night.
Yeah, I think we ended up tracking blood like maybe 500 yards that night is what I tracked it on Google Maps.
It was a long ways.
And so we searched for probably, I mean, we tracked blood for, I want to say like 3 hours or 3 or 4 hours or so that night. It was cold, real cold that night. And so I think what we ended on was we found a few drops of blood, and Ranger had gone beyond that. And you came back and you're like, hey, heard something walking up here in this thicket. Let's, I don't know if it's him or not, but if he's still walking, let's give him some time. And we all agreed, and then we backed out. And then, the next morning, me and Noah went back up there while you and your dad hunted. And so we went back up there, and I ended up just I basically stumbled upon more blood. This is not just a drop here and there. This is good piles of blood and I have pictures still, and we can put them up for the YouTube video if you want. But we found good blood that morning, and we trailed this good blood for probably another 50 yards, thinking, okay, he bedded down, blew a clot, and now he's bleeding again. He should be just up here. But then the good blood and it's spraying too, is what it looked like. It was spraying into the bushes and stuff that he was walking by. And then it just stopped. Just like all of a sudden just stopped. And we didn't find another drop of blood, another track, another anything. It was like aliens came down and beamed him up, like he was just gone. And we searched for a while that next morning also. And I feel like I got to give it to my little 5-year-old son, because he was a trooper and he was asking, classic 5-year-old questions like, how long are we going to be out here? When are we going to be done? And you're, I know you're well aware of how, young kids can be. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners are, but
I will say
he was a trooper.
that
for sure.
that track that night and you having your son there, I know, like I feel your pain, like as a dad and as a parent, and you're trying to, find a deer that, and you're getting frustrated, just with the way the track's go and everything,
Yes.
and so it's easy to be a little aggravated sometimes with the
Oh
kiddo,
man.
and I was definitely like, okay, I'm not the only guy that
Oh
has this
yeah,
happen from time to time with their kiddo out in the
for
woods.
sure. Yeah,
Even though
because
my
it's
son
like,
wasn't out there, it made me feel a little bit better.
yeah, I feel bad for him because he was, this is his second track on a deer ever, and
He did
like
find a deadhead, didn't he?
he sure did, and we
Yeah.
still have it. It's in the it's in the back of my shop right now.
Yeah, while we were wandering around out there, he stumbled upon a little deadhead. So,
Yeah, yeah, cool little funky little deer that stayed in the back of my truck for a while. But yeah, we ended up not finding him, giving up the track as we searched for probably 4 or 5 hours the next morning, and never found this deer again. He was the route that he was kind of taking was the property line. I mean, the last blood that we saw was probably 100 yards off the property line, but the way he was trending and the blood trail was trending was going towards that fence. And there's a clear cut on that fence, and we walked. I don't know what else we could have done other than getting permission to go across the fence, which we had no idea where he would have crossed that anyways. But I don't know what else we could have done because we had a dog. We trailed him, several hours, and there just wasn't anything to go off of. But
yeah. Now that clear cut, like, again, you talked about earlier about how, during the rut he kind of changed his behavior and how he was super consistent, and we call him the bow blind buck because that's the only stand that we were getting him on was the bow blind on the south side. Again,
yeah,
super consistent, but all of a sudden rut hits and he changes everything, and he's not down there anymore. He's up on kind of it's about probably the dead middle of the east side of the property now,
yeah,
and he's running this range between, you know my dad's stand, your dad's stand, there's another stand a little bit farther south of that, and that's the area he's in. So I mean, yeah, you were in a prime spot to be able to see that deer and
yeah,
everything, that time of year and stuff. And it's interesting, I'll give Ryan Reading, one of our staff members, a shout out because I did a podcast with him
yeah. He's
during the
another one.
season when we were going through all this and everything, and he was pretty spot on with what he told me. He was like, "You're not going to kill that deer down the south side of that bow blind. You're going to kill that deer, up there where he's moving during the rut and everything." And sure enough, like down to
Yeah,
the days he said that deer would be moving in the daylight, he was pretty spot on. Dude knows his stuff, but it
for
it
sure.
just yeah, that clear cut though on that fence, like you got you got thick woods bedding, and that's what we're tracking him through. On our side, you got about a 8 to 10 yard clear cut wide
Yep.
going down the fence line, and then the exact same type of woods on the other side. And we knew like this deer. I did not think that deer would go north, which might be what he ended up doing. Honestly, just
Maybe
me
so.
me thinking out loud, he might have popped out of those woods and gone north on our property, but he'd been running it like that was where we were looking for him was the farthest north point we had ever seen that deer, and all of the range during the rut was pushing south of that location. So that
Yep.
was my thought, at least in the moment. I'm like, he either crossed the fence and he's in that thick stuff on the other property, or he hit that clear cut, and that's like his corridor. That's like his safe way to run north and south
Yeah.
a good 3/4 of a mile probably through that clear cut and go undetected because nobody
Oh
can
yeah.
really see that very well. So I'm like, he either went across the fence or he hit that clear cut and went south back toward the other area, like his safe haven. But in hindsight, I'm thinking, man, I mean, there's no way to tell now, obviously, but and especially when we get to the next part of the story, that made me think, man, maybe that deer went north.
Yeah. Yeah. Which leads us to so this was the day before Thanksgiving that all this was happening. And then so we go home for Thanksgiving. And then my dad and sister go back out the day after Thanksgiving. Or no, they went out Thanksgiving day and hunted the evening of Thanksgiving. And my dad literally shot his buck that night, like two days later.
Yeah.
Shot his buck at that same feeder that me and Noah were sitting at.
And
And
and I'll just so that everybody sees a timeline when like you're talking about when you're out there and you shot this deer and we're tracking him and all that kind of stuff. I've talked before on the show about how I had an encounter with the buck that your dad ended up killing, and like he was running through the camp staying clear and I'm at full draw waiting for him to stop and he won't.
yep,
That was during all of this. Like that was during this window that you and I were both out there and all this is going on with your deer.
yeah,
So,
the same time frame.
yeah.
So they go out after Thanksgiving. He shoots his buck. I think Mackenzie might have shot a doe. That's my little sister. And so then we go out I want to say a week later, me, my wife, my dad, my little sister. It was either a week later or that weekend. Trying to remember.
I think it was the weekend after Thanksgiving. Like y'all went out on Friday
I
or
think so, too.
Saturday or something like that.
Just so everybody, like, just to recap, my encounter was we went hunting Friday or Monday. I shot the buck Tuesday. We came home Tuesday. We were Thanksgiving was Thursday. My dad shot his buck Thursday. We were back out there Saturday. So this is all in a week's time that this is happening. So me and my wife, days later, after this all happened, or after I had shot my buck. And so we went and we basically just grid searched the whole thicket where we last saw blood, thinking that he was going south, just like you said. And we started at the furthest north point of this thicket and then just grid searched south, thinking we might stumble across his body, something that would let us know where he was. A deadhead maybe at that point. Didn't find anything, not a single thing. We found some tracks that were obvious buck tracks because they were huge, but those could have been, from any time any time.
Yeah.
So we didn't find anything. We hunted and we hunted that night. And then the next morning, my wife and I sat in your dad's box blind,
Mm-hmm.
which is from the stand me and Noah were sitting in. You can look through your binoculars and see your dad's box blind. It's further north from where all this is happening.
Yeah. I've ranged it before. I think it's about 600 to 700 yards north of your dad's stand.
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah, it's so like that area, right? Like it's almost like this little bowl that comes down,
Yep.
and you have hills on both sides that funnel down this draw, and this draw is just long and like thousands of yards long. And my
Yeah.
dad's stand is like right at the north side of that draw, like looking down into the bowl, basically, and he can see both sides of the hills coming down. So
Yep.
yeah,
So we're sitting in that box blind, and we're sitting there, and it is so cold outside. We sit there, watch this feeder. We see a couple of does like to the east, like across the fence, across the property line, and then just like I think we sit there for hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's probably, I want to say it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning. We see this buck running. He passes the box blind, running south, coming from north of us, which is even further north than what we thought he would ever go. He came from the north and was running south, probably 80 yards west of where we were to our right, and just like runs through the draw, in between all the mesquites, and looks perfectly fine.
yeah,
And this happens on, I want to say, either November 30th or December the 1st. And then December the 2nd, we get a picture on our camera of this deer going to the feeder that me and Noah sat at originally. And he looks unharmed. So
crazy.
that's the saga of the bow blind buck.
Well, and a part of the story that I want to add to all this is what the other deer on the property did
Yeah.
after all of this takes place and before you see him again. Like we're talking, a couple, 2, 3, 4-ish days, whatever it was, that, or maybe it might have been close. I guess it was like 4 or 5, maybe 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Like
It was.
we knew that this was the dominant buck. We knew that this buck, wherever he was pushing other deer, other bucks out.
For sure.
And our property's big enough, like there are different mature bucks that own different ranges. Like you hunt camp stand and then you go hunt the bow blind down south, for example, you're hunting completely different deer and completely different bucks. Like they're far enough apart, that's how it is. But what I noticed was, one, when this bow blind buck first started showing up, I first got our very first pictures of him back in August. Before he showed up, there was a big 10 point down on that south side. And as soon as this bow blind buck started showing up, it was obvious that he was pushing these other bucks around and he was the dominant buck. And that 10 point left. That 10 point left the property. We
never showed up again.
Well, not yet, right?
Yeah.
I think like between August and this taking place in November, we had like maybe a single picture of him just passing through one stand that's close to a corner of the property.
Yeah.
And then we also had the camp stand buck. He would never push very far to the south. He stayed on the north end. So I was thinking, okay, well maybe this bow blind buck, like his range is so big and he's like his territory is known. It's obvious, right?
Yeah.
After you took those shots at that deer, I was convinced. I was like, and I told you, I was like, dude, I'd put money on that deer's dead. Like, I hate to tell you that, but that deer's dead. Because, one, the blood that I saw, I've killed deer that bled less than that, and I found the dead deer, right?
Yep.
And
same.
I was like just looking at the blood, I was like, there's no way this deer's not dead. There's no way.
Yeah.
And then that combined with the fact that immediately the day after all this takes place, all of a sudden that 10 points back, like multiple days in a row. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Just like that, like a switch flips, and all of a sudden that 10 points back on the south side. And all of a sudden the camp buck from the north, he starts going south. He starts showing up at your dad's stand down there that you shot this deer out of. And I'm like, what are these bucks doing? Like, it's obvious that the deer that has owned this range, like, it's obvious that he's down because all these other bucks just immediately started taking over what was his home range.
Right.
So when you texted me and you were like, dude, he just ran past me. Like, I think it was a Sunday morning or whatever it was. I was like, there's no way. Are you 100% sure that it was this deer? Like, there's no way. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
And it was that night. Like you told me that Sunday morning when y'all hunted, and then Sunday night at like 11 p.m., boom, he's back at the stand that you shot him out of on trail cam.
Yep.
And I'm like, there's no way. No way. And as of 2 days after the close of general season, that deer's still alive, thanks to the reveal cell cams telling us that info.
Yep. He's still alive.
Somehow that deer made it. And I just don't. I'm still baffled by it, man. Like,
I am too.
Just incredibly tough animal. What in the world?
Yeah, I'm really curious, and I hope that the story continues and we continue to see him into next season, because I'm gonna hunt this deer hard. And I hope we all do, because I want to see him dead, because I want to see where I shot him, where I hit him, because I hit him for sure. And, he's got a really distinct, and we can post a picture of him on the YouTube, a really distinct rack. He's really heavy, mainframe 8, and he goes up, and one of his antlers, he looks like this almost, and he's got a very distinct rack. He's not real equal on either side. And so that's always been my telltale sign of, this is him. This is definitely him.
Yeah.
Especially when he ran by me that day, him running away from me, I knew exactly what deer it was because of the way his rack looks.
Yeah.
Which, is all deer, but,
Yeah.
just insane.
No.
It's been a wild season.
It just and that's been the big piece of, like I said at the beginning, kind of this story of our Texas dirt season this year that's been missing was just, the what we had going on with all of our bucks this year. And we talked earlier about, learning lessons about the rut versus not the rut, and our
Yeah,
deer doing, and some adjustments we might want to make as far as where our setups are and what we're prioritizing. But yeah, this history with this buck, man, and man, I'm pretty optimistic. I see no reason this deer won't make it through.
yeah, I agree.
He is obviously, in my opinion, just looking at him compared to our other deer, he's the most mature deer on the property. Like
For sure.
going back, there's a couple of trail cam pictures from previous seasons where I'm looking at him and the rack has similar characteristics. Like this deer's been here for a little while, I've pulled up a couple of pictures from previous years where I'm pretty sure it's the same buck.
Yeah,
I have no, like, he looks healthy. He doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't look hurt. Like
at all.
he bounced back in an incredible way after all this. It's like he hunkered down for 5 days and licked his wounds and then was just right back at life.
That's exactly what I think. I think he went into hiding for a few days and just didn't do anything for a few days and healed. And now he's back to
Doing his thing.
pure, like, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's crazy.
crazy.
Like I said, I've shot deer that bled less or didn't bleed at all. You remember San Angelo? Those deer down in San Angelo,
Yeah.
they didn't bleed at all.
Literally,
Unless Tim
one drop-
Burgess shot them.
Yeah.
Then they
Yeah.
bled a lot. But
He blew their shoulder out.
but anyway, I've hunted deer that just didn't bleed, and you still find them and everything. And even that
Yeah.
doe that I shot, right? I mean, I made a great double lung hit on her with my bow. When I shot her this year, and um, even the blood on that wasn't what the first 50 yards of this blood trail with your buck were.
Right,
And it
yeah.
just, I don't know. It's crazy. I think too. I had a guy at work yesterday actually show me a video of him and his buddies went out hog hunting the other night or something, and they had this big old, like he said, it was close to a 300-pound boar, and they had to shoot this thing like, I don't know, 9 or 10 times before they put this pig on the ground, like just a tough
Golly.
old boar. And I compare that to 2022, the 300-pounder that I shot out there on Texas dirt.
Yeah.
One arrow to the heart, runs 80 yards and fell over dead. It's like,
Yep.
man, some of these creatures are just so tough.
It's a game of inches for sure.
Yeah, I mean, literally, that's what it comes down to. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm excited. I always say this. I'm excited for next year. I'm excited to see what we can adjust and what we can learn, and I don't know, shift some things around a little bit as far as our mentalities go, and
Yeah.
hopefully see some different results next year. I definitely, like you said at the beginning, we don't have a whole lot of options for tree stands and everything, just with the height of our typical, cover and everything
Yeah.
out there, our canopy. But there's pockets, there's places that we can put them up, and I know we have a couple of hang-ons or stuff like that laying around that could also
Yeah.
go out there, or are already out there, just not up. So we need to prioritize that too. But
For sure. Yeah, and even I'm also curious, and like I've seen a couple of YouTube videos from some guys who have the same issue, don't have a lot of big trees on their place, not necessarily in Texas, but just similar terrain.
yeah,
And they hunt, they build ground blinds, like not necessarily pop-up blinds, but like they cut out cedar trees, or build blinds to hide themselves from a deer that will be passing by at some point or whatever. So I'm kind of curious to see where we can find some of those spots as well,
yeah.
if we can find some.
Yeah, I know here coming up, I want to make it out there, try to make it out there at least one day a month, because the property is an hour and a half for me and probably around 3 from you, I would imagine.
Yep.
It's a haul. So but I want to try to make it out there at least one day a month minimum to for the first part of, you know, kind of going into the spring and summer, you know, to get some work done and put some boots on the ground and everything, and also move some cameras around too, because I have several trails, several little spots I want to put cameras on just to see what the deer are doing. I'm also, I don't know, listening to listening to Don Higgins talk about trail cameras and everything, and just some of my own observations this last year. I'm trying to figure out how I can get some of these cameras a little bit higher as well, because I do think that
Yeah.
the deer know where they are, and the deer know what they are to a certain extent, because I've seen in the 2 years that we've had the camp stand where it's at, I've seen plenty of deer when they're walking that corner where that camera is on the clearing, they walk around the back side of it.
Yep.
So I know with all of our setups, and this is just the game of trail cams. Everybody knows this, regardless of where your
Yeah.
camera is. You have one picture, you have one viewpoint, right? Unless you have one of those cool 360 cameras from somebody, then you got more money than you know what to do with, apparently. But you know, for the rest of us blue collar folks, you know, you got
Yeah.
one picture and it shows one viewpoint, and you could have plenty of deer moving different directions outside of that viewpoint. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you mentioned earlier, we have cows out there. So if you get those cameras, I've had more times than I can count this season, just this season alone, cows come up, snip these cameras, lick on them, just knock them sideways. And it's like, man, I've got to find another place for these cameras, because this being on a T post outside of the feeder pen is not working.
yeah, no, I think, I mean, the ultimate fix for them, you know, is like getting one of those security boxes or something that Huntington Outdoor Gear makes. You know,
Yeah.
they also make those tenna braces for the 2.0 Tacticams, but getting stuff like that, and like those boxes, you can actually like screw them to a tree or a wooden fence post or something like that. And man, I mean, a cow can lick it all they want, but they're gonna have to commit if they want to rip that thing off. Those boxes are pretty awesome. So
Yeah. Maybe Huntington can send us a few for Texas dirt.
yeah, you know, normally you think of those security boxes, you're like those places where you got like bears and all the, you know, these
Right.
critters that'll grab it and hang off of it and, you know, try to play softball with it or whatever. But it's
Yeah.
like, man, these cows are
Not
just as
cows. Yeah.
bad. So
They
yeah,
are, dude. Such a pain.
yeah,
But
I
it's
ended
part
up
of the game.
I ended up moving the camera that was on Rocky Top because I had the same problem at that stand. You know, we just had a T post kind of out there in a little. I put it in a little clump of like brush, you know, hoping that
Yep.
they would go around it. It's like every time I went out there, at some point I'd have to stop by that stand and fix the camera because they would just rub against it and move it. So it was kind of later in the year. I ended up there was a big cedar tree, you know, to the north of the feeder itself, and I ended up clearing a bunch of branches out of that and moving it to the cedar tree, and they haven't messed
Yeah.
with it since. But yeah,
Yeah. That double stand, I had kind of the same issue. Like, it was on a T post right in the middle of a briar bush. And I was like, man, they wouldn't come close to this. You know, it'll poke them, is what I'm thinking.
yeah,
But they didn't care. It got knocked off all the time. So I ended up finding a decent oak tree behind on the other side of the feeder, where I could put, and I ended up putting it up high. It's probably, I bet 7 feet, because I'm 6 feet tall. It's probably 7 feet up in this tree.
yeah,
And then I was able to wire the solar panel to the other side of the tree, where it'll get sun. So
yeah,
that's worked out nicely so far and hadn't been
nice.
knocked. But we definitely need to find some spots like that for the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, for you, biggest thing you learned this year?
It's kind of funny. I think I have learned to prepare yourself a little better in your, or be more comfortable with your shooting, whether that be a bow or a rifle. And I have made a commitment to myself to do that. I talked to Tim Burgess a little bit about like my rifle setups, because that dude's a genius when it comes to, one, Colorado draw, and two, long range shooting.
Yeah.
I talked to him a little bit after all this happened, and I was like, man, what do I need to do to get more comfortable? He was like, you got all the tools, man. All you need to do is practice. And so that reminds me, I've been meaning to talk to you about setting up like some sort of range out there, rifle range.
Yeah.
I'm thinking in like a clear cut, one of the clear cuts of the highline wires that go through our place, but setting up like a target at 100, 200, 300, and just practicing to see what we need to do just to get a little reach, you know.
I think that'd be good. I mean, you know me, I'm the bow only guy out there, but I know my
Right.
dad. I mean, every time my dad goes out there, just about he normally tries to check his gun and make sure he's on and all that kind of stuff. And I'll ask him what his thoughts are on that too, because I know one, he would take advantage of it if it was out there, and two, he's had 2 or 3 places just over the years that he's gone out there to set up a target and shoot. So I'll figure out where those are, and we can go look at them and see if one in particular would look really good, and opposed to another. But yeah, that's one thing. And Tim, again, bow only guy here, but when I hunted last year out in Colorado, or in 2023 out in Colorado with Tim hunting mule deer, that was you spend plenty of hours, driving roads, farm roads and stuff like that in that country.
Oh, yeah.
With him, and plenty of time to talk about stuff in the truck. And that was one thing that he talked about, especially because out there, I mean, it's, even though I was bow hunting, it's rifle country out there, and it's not uncommon to take a shot that's several hundred yards long at a mule deer or a whitetail. And so that was one thing that he brought up out there, was just how much guys rifle hunters take for granted the practice, right? And the shot process, and refining that, being consistent with that, especially when you start getting in habits of shooting longer distances. And for us on Texas dirt, like, a long distance shot for us is kind of like the one you took. I mean, we're not just the demographic or the topography and everything. We're not going to take a shot much longer than that.
Right.
But I mean, that's our version of it. It's different wherever you go, but consistency and actually having to perform that instead of just taking your rifle out and shooting at 100 yards and saying you're good. There's a whole lot more to it than that, and so many guys do that. And Tim was like, yeah, that's everybody thinks about with archery, because there's so much to the shot process with archery, and there's so much room for error if you're not consistent or you don't practice. But I mean, it's no different with shooting a rifle, So
yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I've learned, because I was, like, full transparency to our listeners, I'm not afraid to say it, I was that guy that would I've shot several deer with the rifles that I use, very comfortable at 100 yards. And I was that guy that would take it out there. I'd put a water bottle on the road at 100 yards, and I'd shoot at it. Okay, yep,
good to go.
It's on, good to go. And then this opportunity presented itself where I have a big buck at 250 yards. And, I did do a little research on, what the kind of bullet that I was using, the kind of trajectory it had, where I needed to aim. And I did that research, but I did not practice as much as I should have. And so I wasn't completely comfortable with it, to be completely honest. But decided to throw it out there anyways. And I fully believe that I missed both of those shots, or not the second one, or the first two, but not the third one where he was facing right at me.
We obviously had blood, but
I fully believe that I missed those first 2 shots from the long range, and that was because of a lack of practice. And so I just say to anybody out there, if you're not comfortable shooting, not confident, go practice, find a place to practice. There's tons of places within driving distance, more than likely around where you live. So
yeah,
that's one thing, biggest thing that I learned. And it's same with archery. Like, I've made a commitment to myself also to practice that as well. Having Bear River's like 10 minutes for me, and he's got an awesome outdoor range. And so I go over there, I try and go over there, at least once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, just to play around.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward, like I said earlier, getting out there here next week, and getting to play around out there a little bit more, and do a podcast there in the shop. It's going to be fun.
I am too. I'm stoked. Yeah.
Well, I do want to mention this, and that's just that I appreciate you sharing this, the story on the podcast and everything publicly, and it's easy. It would be easy for a listener that just wants to be negative about everything to criticize you or talk bad about it for in whatever piece of it they want to pick apart or pick the whole thing apart, Monday morning quarterback it. But at the end of the day, and the reason that I never shy away from having people talk about this kind of stuff on our show is just to drive home the fact again that just because we have a podcast doesn't mean that we're not still the everyday guys with the everyday problems, and stuff like this happens, and you've never truly hunted, at least not for any significant amount of time, if you've never had something like this happen. Gun, bow, close, far away, whatever it is, we've all had those sucky hunts or those moments that it's hard to get over, or they just make your stomach churn, whatever it might be, but that's an unfortunate part of it. And like you've said here at the very end, it makes you want to refine your marksmanship and your craft even further. So
so that way this next coming up season, if I do get another opportunity at a 250-yard shot, I know exactly what my rifle will do and where that bullet's going to hit. So be even better. That always improving. You know?
That's all you can do. You got to learn from it and build off of it. That's it. So
for sure.
Well, buddy, thanks for taking some time to do a podcast and bring the loyal listeners up to speed on what's been going on in Texas and everything, and filling in the big missing piece of the story from 2024. So
sorry it took this long, but December was just absolutely crazy. And so we had a lot going on. Like me shooting that deer and not finding it was even though seeing him alive and well brought a little comfort, that was just the start of the month of December and the whirlwind that brought to my life personally. Because on the way home, I think this is worth mentioning. On the way home from that hunt, my truck literally broke down, and we were stranded about halfway between home and here. And we were I drive a Dodge. So we stopped at a Dodge dealership, and me and Noah were there for, I want to say like 5 hours maybe. We were at this Dodge dealership because my wife had to get off work or leave work early, go pick up our other son, and then drive 2 hours to pick us up. And so, but that that's no fun. That doesn't help out anything. And I felt bad too, because we left at the same time, but I think you said you went into town there where our property is and made a couple stops before you left town, and I pretty much just straight left town, so I was in front of you. And it was later that evening I texted you about something, and you were like, "No, I'm still in Mineral Wells." And I was like, "What? No way, dude." I was like, "Why didn't you text me? I could have turned around and at least brought y'all to the house or something." But I don't know. It worked out, I guess. But it worked out. I got my truck back, and it's got a brand new engine in it now. So
again,
all is well.
The warranty and the system worked.
Yeah, it did.
You had a couple of different warranty experiences this year. So.
I know. I'm telling you, man. I'm glad it's 2025.
Yeah. New year, new us.
That's right.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate it again. Thanks for joining us for a show, and it won't be long for the next one. We'll have you back on here in a couple episodes for the Bear River podcast. Looking forward to it. Yeah. You guys be sure you tune into that when the time comes. Thank you all for listening. Be sure that if you guys haven't checked out our series on Carbon TV, Texas Dirt, please go do that. We are some episodes behind as far as getting you guys up to speed and current with the recent happenings, but hopefully in the next month or so we're gonna be back on that and have some more episodes coming out. So until then, go catch up on what you've missed on Texas Dirt so far and the series Nick and I are producing down here in Texas. So thanks for listening to the podcast. Back with you guys again next week for another episode. Catch you then.
See you later.